Wargamers, I'm Lee and you're watching 360 Wargaming. Hi guys, thanks for joining us again today. Today we're going to start the first of our marketplace diorama. I'm going to start by building this stable block from LCA. I've had this a while now and I'm good friends with Daryl, the guy that owns LCA. So we're going to start with this, and this is going to be our first build piece, and then we're going to do another video afterwards which is painting. Now just to set that to one side, I do have this already open, and I've got the instructions out, so you can see nice simple instructions that show you how to get this together, and most of the pieces are already clipped from the sprue. Obviously if you've bought MDF terrain before, you know that some pieces, or sometimes they do come on these little wooden sprues. Now it has been, they have been left on for the roofs just so that they can be labelled for ease of building later on. So we'll just pop it out of the bag and have a look. As you can see there, they're labelled A to E, and then again D, E, B, etc. on that one, and that's just so you know for the last stages, if you look here, of building this, it just shows you there what order the roof slates need to go in, and that's just so that you get the right look on there and you've not got two of the same side by side. So normally I would build this using PVA, but I do want to get it built quickly and get it ready so that this video doesn't run on forever. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to see if I can find the first pieces and get it laid out ready to glue. I'm going to lay it out as a template laid down, so that I can just lift things up into place when they're ready to be there. They do have some small fiddly bits like door frames and things. I'm just going to pop them over to one side for the time being so they don't get broken while I'm doing everything else. Again, these small doors, etc., that can just go to one side for now. What I think I'll do first is, I've got some of the pieces ready. I am just going to go ahead and build this square here. I just build the outer frame for now and then come back in and put windows in afterwards. So again, got my glue, and I am going with super glue like I said, and that's just to make this a little bit quicker and easier to do. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit down the inside of the tabs there, and then the same on here. I'm just going to pop some glue on like so, and that just covers all of the connection points once we pop it together. And because it is super glue, it shouldn't take too long to dry. And just hold it in place for a minute. And I actually took too long getting the glue on there. It's actually soaked into the MDF, which is one of the reasons most people do use PVA glue, because it doesn't soak in as quickly, and when it does, it creates a nice strong bond. But there we go. Just like I said, hold that for a few seconds just to give that glue time. I'd really rather not have to be clamping this into place, but it may be that we need to come back in with some clamps and do that. No, that looks like it's taken this time. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it again on these pieces. Add a little bit down the side and then on the back just here. And again, it's soaked in really quickly there, so it may need 2 coats to stop that happening. And then again on this one, so I'm just gonna run a bead down here, and like you can see it's soaking in really quickly, so it's going to need a nice thick layer of it to stop that happening. And then again on the inside tabs, and I'm doing it on these tabs rather than grabbing the other piece off the desk, just so that it can stay there. Yeah, look, it's happened again. So hopefully I've been quick enough and we can just get that first square built and not stuck to the desk. So what I'm going to do afterwards is, while that gives it a chance to dry, I'm just going to come in and just go down the gaps. So as you can see, just put a little bit of glue down there. And because it does soak in really quickly, it will soak through and just create a nice tight bond. It's not the way I wanted to do it, but it is the quickest and easiest way to get this built. And if you are in a rush, then it's probably the best way to do it. And what I may do is come in afterwards with a little bit of PVA, just to give it that extra strong bond. But as this is going to be a display piece, it's not going to be a play piece, so it's not going to get the rough and tumble of being on the table, and therefore probably not going to get as damaged as it might do if it's going on and off and this model's moving in and out and around it. So there we've got the first piece, and again, like I said, this is just the outer side of the stable, and we'll pop that to one side. We'll put it over with the small pieces, and then move on to this this bigger section. I'm just going to check. Yep. So what you can do with this is it can be built as 2 separate pieces, but because of the way the roof is designed, it does cover the whole lot. But it does mean that it can be a little bit more modular. You can build it, as you can see from the instructions, so that the stable opening is on either side. And it just makes it a little bit more modular for people if they want to go down that route. So let's get this one built, and again with the pieces. So I've got the back wall and the side walls, and because it is an open stable, there's no front piece for this. So I'll do it a little bit differently this time, and I'm just going to hold it together and squirt the glue down the sides, because it just keeps soaking into that where it's been cut. So it's still not working even doing it that way. Now let's try again. Just on these end panels this time, because it doesn't seem to soak in as quickly to the flat MDF as it does if we do it on the cut section. And it just gives us a little bit longer to work with it. Just there. Because you can see that's not soaking in as quick. And once we press them together, there we go. And that should hopefully create the tight join that we're looking for. Like I've said, I may come back in and just put some PVA over the top of it, but because it's a display piece, I don't think it's going to be necessary. I'll just leave that there to dry. And again, we'll just do the same with these ones. I'm going to leave it stood up this time rather than picking it up. And we'll just bob that on there. Same on there. And then we've just got these end pieces to do. just to square it up, I'm just going to use one of these, and I'm just going to sit it on there so that I can make sure that the building is perfectly square. Add another one in just for that added security. I am going to have to add these in eventually anyway, so what I may do is there is only meant to be two, I'm looking for the third one, and I'm just going to, because we've got them in square, and they're going to have to go in next anyway, I believe. Let me just check this and then I'll come back to you in a few moments. Right guys, so just on camera I've just been having a look and having a quick check of the instructions, and what I've not realised is that we've got this back panel here that these connect to, and then the braces sit on top of. So I've not glued them in yet. It shouldn't be a problem if I do, because all I need to do then is just lift the piece up and put the frame in from underneath. So I am going to go ahead and pop that over there and add a little bit of glue to these. Now, it's not the way that it says to be built, but I think for me this is probably going to be the best way to do it for the moment. And just add that little bit of glue in there, and then the same on the other side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this piece ready while the glue dries, and these just slot in. Just give them a nice push in there. They are a nice tight fit, but just to be sure, just a dab of glue on each one again, and then I'm going to pop that to one side again. Right, now just looking at this, we do have it so that this room can be divided, and we do have an extra piece for that. I don't think I'm going to divide the room up. I am going to leave it as it is. So the next step is going to be to lift this up and just slide this over the top, and because I've not been particularly careful, it's all falling apart on me, but that's fine. I can just pop it back together, line up the pieces, just move it onto the camera a little bit better, and re-glue it. And what I think I may have done is there may be an offset on these pieces, so let's have a look. Right, so there we go. So just what we might have to do is either get some tape or a bit of string and fasten it so it all stays tight together. We might get lucky, so I'm just going to go through . And I'm just going to move my microphone because I keep banging my head on it. So let's get it out of the way a little bit. And hopefully that won't cause any problems now. So we do have got the square built, and as you can see, the walls do have some engraving in it, just to give it that stone effect. It's a little bit of an extra touch so that you don't have to worry about detailing that yourself. And the doors are multi-layered again to give that same effect. So just while we wait, I'm going to have a see about building the roof and seeing if I can get it together without too much effort. There's just a few more small pieces I've just found. So let's have a look at this roof. Right, so we've got 2 end pieces, which again are detailed, and then we've got some support frames for inside, which I suspect are designed to be set a specific width apart, and possibly match up with the roof that we've got going on there, or the frames that we've got going on there. Yeah, that looks like it's going to be the case. So let's pop them off for now, because I don't want to glue the roof on yet, and I may not leave it glued on at all. And we do have a few more details there, such as knobs and a small door frame and a small window frame and a door knobs. So just bob them to the side as well. And just looking, we've also got some extra guide clips, and that's just to help the roof stay in place a little bit better. So you can see when we bob the roof on, we've got that extra panel. I'll take that off for now. It does look like the glue is struggling to set, and I think that's just because I need a bit of weight on it to hold it in place. So let's glue it again. Let's see if I can find something with a bit of weight. See if my trusty tape measure will do the job for me. Right, so hopefully it just needs a minute for that to dry, and then we can get the tape measure out of the way and start looking at doing the next bits, like I said, with the roof. Right, so we've given the glue time to dry. I'm going to get rid of the tape measure and just give you an update on where we are. So as you can see, we've got most of the frame built. We've got the pattern on all the outside walls, and we've also got the wall for this, and again the pattern on the outside. So next we're going to think about getting the roof built. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get these little clips. I'm going to put one there and one there, and that's just to hold the outside one. So these pieces that we looked at with the brickwork on there, the stonework, it's just going to allow them to sit in there, and the same on this side. And then we're going to pop these ones on. Do that one on there. And there. And then on there, and that's just to get them in place ready for when we start putting these pieces on. And these are the ones that we looked at earlier with the shingles for the roof. And what I'm going to do is, as you can see here, we've got them labelled out. So the first one across the bottom is going to be an A, and then all the way up. And what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to pop this bit in, and this just goes across the top, and that's just to hold them in place. So we'll slide that in, and this is just part of the roof itself. And if we can get the first two, what I'm going to do, right, so sit that in, and it might be that they're just slightly misaligned. just because I've not got these sat properly into the slots, it just won't align correctly. So I'll just take a minute to do that, because we don't want a wonky roof. Alright, so let's just do the same as we did before. We'll just hold it in place, make sure it's sat in that groove, which it doesn't seem to want to on this side. In fact, let's leave that for now. Let's get some of the base pieces in first. So, as it says on the instructions, we're going to start with an A. So I'm just going to quickly slide everything back a little bit, just so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to grab a knife, if I can find one. So a nice sharp knife, and just a little cut through it. And then just pop it out, and then the same on the other side, just to give it a little nick through, and that just makes it easier to break it off without causing too much damage. And you can see there's some little bits on the end where we've broken it off. I'm just going to go across and just clean that up a little bit. What I might do, clean that one up first, and then just come in with a nail file and just try and smooth that off a little bit. There we go. And then this is going to run all the way across there. They are designed to overlap on the ends a little bit. So what we'll do, I'm not sure if we're going to have the same problem with this as we have with the side pieces soaking up the glue really quickly. So let's see how we can do this. Just run a bead of super glue just here, and then again just there, because I'm pretty sure that's where the connections are made, and press it into place. And then what we can do is just a little bead on each one, just to let it soak in. So this next one is a B and then a C, which are these two pieces anyway. So I'll score it again. On either side. I'm going to flip it over this time just to score the back as well, see if that helps getting it out. Yeah, that does make it a little bit easier just to pop it out there once we've done that. And then again, I'm going to come in with a nail file and just file the edges down, just to clean it up a little bit. And that's just to take that extra bare off to make it look a little bit more realistic. And then the same on there. And then again, I'm going to do this. I'm going to glue it on. I'm just going to work his way up. So I'm just going to, rather than keeping you waiting all the way through this, I'm going to just do a quick time lapse so that we can get you to the end. And what I will do is, once I can do is I'm going to pop the roof off and move the building out of the way just to make it a little bit quicker. So hopefully this time we can bob it on here and then get on with the time lapse. Just give that a minute to glue, and then hopefully it'll be sturdy enough that I can take it off. But I may need to come in and do the other sides first to get that sorted. Yeah, so it's glued it to the end too, but not to the middle ones, so I have to bob it back on there to make sure that we get enough glue on. So I'll just time lapse this and I will be back in a few minutes to give you an update. So before I move on to doing the rest of this side, I'm just going to flip the building round and then we can get the first three of the other side done, just to give us that ABC at the bottom like we've had. And that's just to give it a little extra structure so that when we do take it off, it's got some rigidity to it. and we're not looking at it falling apart again. So if I can be as careful as I can turning this round, keep it together. There we go. What I'm going to do is just got a slight bit of twisting in the roof itself, so I'm just going to pop it off. Yeah, the glue's not taken, so I am just going to take it off. Now I've got those three pieces stuck together, and I'm just going to put some extra clips in place on this side, there and there. That means that then this will just stay exactly where it should be. I think there are some other problems with the structure not quite being lined up right, so I'm just going to go off camera and fix those and then come back to you in a few moments. Right, so what I've done is I've just come in off camera, and as you can see I've just added a couple of clamps to keep the building square, and what I managed to do is this little bit of framework here, I'd got it so it hadn't sat into the grooves correctly. So I've now reseated that, reseated all the roof, the trusses and things, and I've run a strip of super glue down here just to create a better connection on that, just to get these so that they don't flex apart. So hopefully we can get this glued and back onto the roof frames itself. And we've got three, so if we do 1, 2, 3 down there, three down there, and the same on the rest of them. And you can see on some of them they just don't want to stand up properly, or for the glue to stay. Hopefully we can get it to hold out long enough just for us to get these three on, and that should, fingers crossed, then create enough of a bond to glue the rest on. So here we go. Let's get them on and pressed into place. And fingers crossed, if we just hold that for a minute. I know it's not ideal, but it's a lot easier to do this than it would be if we were working with PVA glue, for example. And then what we'll do is we'll flip the building round and we'll get back to that time lapse and get it hopefully finished in the next couple of minutes, and then we'll start adding the details like the door frames, doors, door handles, etc. And they're the small fiddly bits, but I wanted to get the main structure of this built and out of the way first, and hopefully that will hold. And then we can get on with this side. So we'll be back in a few minutes if you want to just watch the time lapse, and we'll be back shortly. Right, so I've just taken the time to get these prepped and ready just to make it a little bit quicker to get them on. So they've been cut out and laid in the order that they need to go in from bottom to top. So we'll go with this one here and then work his way up. And that's just to make it a little bit quicker getting through this. And then we'll go ahead and do the same with these ones. But I'll do it again off camera so that you don't need to watch. And then you can just come back and you can watch me get these on and then flip it around and do the same. What I'm going to do just before I put this last piece on, just going to add this top section just so it's got something to sit up against, so we know that we've not pushed it too far. And that should add the last bit of structure that we need to this, so we don't need to worry about it falling apart if and when we do take it off. We just got that sat in, and then like I said, just get this last piece in there. No different to the rest of them, but we just needed to know where it was going to line up to. Last thing we wanted at this point was to be not able to add that afterwards. And just hold that in place just while it dries, and then like I said, I'll just nip off camera, clean the rest of them up and then come back to you. Right, so we're back. They've been removed from the wooden sprue. Giving them a clean up so that we are just ready to start putting them straight onto the rest of the roof. So we'll jump straight back into a time lapse and get this done, and hopefully we'll be onto the last bit shortly. So that's the last of the roofing shingles in place. It just needs a few minutes to dry because it is super glue, but it does dry quick. So we'll just leave it a few minutes, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to take it off, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm just going to run across all the seams and all the connections with some PVA glue and set it to one side, because it is going to create a stronger bond than super glue. And I know I have said a couple of times that it's not going to be a plain piece, it's going to be a display piece, but I'd rather have that extra security just to make sure that all the connections are glued tightly. And then what we'll do is, while that's drying, is we will start adding the extra little features such as the door frames and the doors and the door handles, and get all of those onto the rest of the building, as well as these for the front, and they just stick out a little bit here, and that's just to add a little bit of extra detail and separate the building from the stable itself. So I will be back in a few minutes and we'll look at PVA in the back of the roof. Right, so the super glue should be mostly dry by now, so I've just got some PVA glue. It's just cheap PVA, but like I said, it will add that extra bit of secureness to it, just to keep it together, fill those joins, the gaps and things. I don't have anything to spread this with, so I am just going to make a mess and mostly do it with my fingers. Like I said, this is just to spread it across those gaps. It creates a little bit of a seal on the laser cut wood, and just help that extra security. Now if I can do this right and just put a big blob on each row, and the same on each of those. It's not pretty, but it will help to fill those gaps and create a nice tight seal on them. And again, it's just a case of rubbing my finger down each one, pushing it into the back and spreading that glue out. So there you go, you can see here, just like that, and spreading them all out, and then I'll flip it around and do the other side and just push some extra down there where I've maybe not got enough. And because it dries clear, it doesn't really matter if you put too much on, and if you're like me, I went to school in the 80s and 90s, you can always peel off the glue that you get on your fingers. I'm sure you know what I mean if you are of a similar age to myself, because we all did it as kids. So there you go, last few bits. And spread it all over, get in the connections, and flip it around and do exactly the same on the other side. Like I said, it is messy, but you do get the added joy of peeling that PVA off after you peeling it off your fingers, and you get the extra security on the model or the building that you're building. And it only takes a couple of minutes, and then what I'll do is I'll get the last of these done, and then I'll go in there, dry my hands so that I can get on with the next bit. Right, and as you can see, some of it's squeezed through the top. Again, like I said, that's not an issue. I'm just running a bead down there anyway, and that'll just give it that added seal and fill the gaps in. I'm just going to pop that to one side over here, out of the way. I'm going to stand it the right way around so that the glue can flow into those gaps without us worrying about it. And then I'll be back in a few minutes and we'll start looking at adding these extra features and the doors. I'm going to get the PVA glue out of the way because we're going to go back to super. Right, so I've just removed the clips, so we do have two separate pieces again. So we've got the main building and then we've got the stable itself. And what we've got to do is we've got to add these sections just to make the stable a little bit bigger. Not that one, that one. So they are designed to go on a specific side, and therefore they are cut in a very certain way, as you can see. And that's just so that the outer one, because it does have the stonework detailing, to line up just here. So let's lay it on its back, run some super glue into these gaps, and hopefully we can get it on before all that glue soaks in. And we may have to get that PVA back out if it's going to soak it in too quick, but I don't think it is. What I am going to do is I'm going to bring one of them clamps back in, just hold it in place so it's nice and square, and do the same on the other side. I'm just going to leave that for a couple of minutes while we look at these. So these are the door frames. They are designed to be two together, just to give it a little bit of depth with a single door. inside, and that's just to give you the appearance of a thicker door so you can have it opened or closed. I think I'm actually going to have the door open on these, just so you can see inside, because I do have some extra little details. Like I said, it is going to be a diorama, so I'm going to go with an open door, and I'm possibly going to have it the other way around, so that it opens away from the building, just so you can look inside and see those extra details that I've got in there, things such as barrels and shelves that I'm hopefully going to pick up soon and add in. And that's just some added extra details. But while we wait for this piece to dry, I'm going to come in and we're going to add the window framing detail into that window. It'll just sit in there nicely. So I'm going to, again, with our super glue, I'm going to run a bead around the outside. And because this isn't as thick wood, hopefully it won't soak in at all. You can just slide that into place. I'm just going to hold it until it dries. Leave a bit of my thumb on there. Alright, what it has done is it has soaked up that PVA, that glue quite quickly. So let's put a bead round. In fact, what we might do, because I'm guessing that's dry by now, is just come along, use one of the clamps to hold it in place. And run that super glue around it. That's just to make our lives a little bit easier while that sets. Then I'll come back in and I'll add a bead of glue across the top once that's set. In the meantime, we're going to go back to this one. I know we're jumping around a lot here, but rather than stopping the video and going back and coming backwards and forwards, I'm just going to jump from one to the next. So again, super glue, give us those beads down the piece, and pop it on. And I'm just going to use the clamp again to hold it in place. And then pop that to one side. And while that dries, I don't want to use the clamp to hold these together because I don't want to damage them. So I'm just going to run a fine bead around. I'm going to hold it by the thick bit so I don't get too much glue on my fingers. Run the bead around the edges on the big bits. And hopefully, because it is tiny, when we pop this on, it won't take too long to dry. And like I said, I think if I was to clamp this, it'd actually most likely cause some damage to the wooden piece itself rather than holding it in place, because it is such a fine piece. I have managed to misalign them, which is an absolute pain. So let's just try and line it up a little bit better. There we go. And then all we need to do with this is come along and pop it in there. And that just, it gives it a little bit of depth. As you can see there, it pokes out a little bit. That just gives it a nice thick door frame. So again, bead of super glue around the inside. and then slide it into place, and we'll sit it forward a little bit so we do have that thicker frame on the outside. Just a bit of glue on the bottom, just hold it in place for a minute. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to run another bead of glue just down the side or down the inside, and that's just because the glue did soak into the MDF before I had a chance to get it in place. I would recommend, if you are doing this, don't rush it like I am. Try and get it, take your time with it and get it perfect, because these kits are fantastic. You know, LCA have put a lot of detail and a lot of thought into getting these made, so it is worth taking your time to get them together right. They do look fantastic, even when it's been rushed to be put together like this one has by me. It's still going to look good once it's finished, and with the other pieces that I've got going on this, it's certainly going to be a standout centerpiece, I'd say. Right, so we just pop that off. So plenty of time to dry. I'm just going to pop another bead of glue across the top. And this is, it's all for extra stability. It's not that it needs it, it's just me being a little bit overcautious with things, especially since the super glue does get soaked in really quickly. As you can see, that's just popped off, and that was a bit that I super glued. So thankfully still have the PVA glue out, still got that here, so we'll put a bead of PVA on instead, and it just means that we're going to have to clamp it in place and leave it for about an hour just to give that PVA time to dry. It's not ideal because I wanted to get on with things as quick as I could today, but I'd rather have the pieces glued in place than be moving along with other things. And it's just the door that needs to be done now as well, so it's something I can do anyway while this dries and build it and get it in. So again, same issue with this one, it wasn't sticking, and that was simply because the super glue had just been absorbed so quickly. So let's clamp that one in place. And we'll pop them to one side, and those clamps will give us a nice secure fit, and it'll also give us a nice 90-degree angle, a perfect angle, so that they're not leaning to one side. It's not 90 degrees because it's not a corner. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the same on here, just run a bead of PVA just along that edge, and then just push it in with my fingers all the way around. And that should just create a nice tight bond. And because we don't want to obscure the details, I am just going to make sure that I wipe it out from the stonework, so it literally just sits in these gaps here. Take it off the front. I may come back in and do the same with this one later on, but I think for now that's okay. So going back to the doors, this kit's come with two doors now. One is an internal, I'm assuming one's designed for the internal wall and one's designed for the external door. because I'm not using the internal wall, at least I don't think I'm going to use the internal wall, I'm going to use the door with the windows in for the outside. So I'm just going to pop that down, open this little bag with the tiny doorknobs in, and pop them out. Now these are the same thickness as the door, but that's because they are designed to be glued together, one on top of the other, so that it gives a nice thick doorknob. This is 2mm, I believe. Let me just check quickly. Yeah, so this is 2mm MDF, and these are two 2mm doorknobs. And we're just going to do the same as we've done with everything else, and we're just going to super glue it and hope that super glue takes. Now they are engraved on one side, so we're going to glue them back to back so that we don't lose any of that detail, especially since this door is going to be an open one. And it's just going to be a dab of glue there. And then there we go. So that's our little doorknobs. Because we've had the issues with gluing end to ends together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same as with the others, and I'm going to PVA glue around the outside of this, and then possibly clamp it in place if I can find another clamp to use. But it's not essential that we clamp it, we might just have to hold it in place for a little while. So let's do that now. So, bit of PVA, spread it around with my fingers, clean them off, and push that into the gap there. I'm just going to try and get it so it sits perfectly on either side and hold it in place. If I can just bring that up to the camera, if you can see there, if we try and get it, if we can focus. I've got the same amount. Right, are we going to focus? Just the same amount of the doorknob showing through on either side. It's not really focusing for us, but as you can see as well, the doorknobs do have some detailing on them. Picking up too much of the background to focus, but we'll just pop that down, stand it on its side, and hopefully let's lean it against something so it doesn't fall over. And that's just to give that a little bit of time to dry. And then we've just got the rear window to glue in, and I think that's us done in terms of this, and we're ready to start looking at the next piece. As you can see, a little tiny window, but because we've got glue drying on here, I'm going to give that 5 minutes to dry, and then we'll come back in. So we'll be back with you shortly. Right guys, so here we are with the 3 component parts that we've built it in. We do still have some PVA drying, but it's on the roof, and the roof is sturdy enough that we can lift it about. We can, give it a good squeeze. I'm not worried about that. And there's still a little bit on the door that is still drying, but I've put a bit of super glue on to counteract that. And as you can see, everything else, all the details are there on the outside. So what we do, if we bob that together like that, it may be easier to put the roof on one part and then put the other part, but we'll try this way first. One side to slide in, and then the other side to slide in. I'm not going to glue this at the moment because it is, like I said, going to be a diorama, and I do want to be able to get to the inside, so being able to take the roof off and the walls off will be useful. But there you go, as you can see, it's all finished. It didn't take long to build. Obviously with drying time and things, it's taken a couple of hours, but if the glue hadn't quickly soaked into the sides, then that wouldn't have been an issue. There were a few issues along the way. They were mostly of my own making. and the instructions are good and well detailed. I should have looked through them first before I made a start on building things. But I'm happy with how it's turned out. It looks how I want it to look for my little marketplace. So the plan is to have a market building, to have the main building and a couple of market stalls and some villagers around it. Just a little something from my usual sci-fi builds. I'm a 40k player, so most of what I build is based on that. So it's nice to be able to do something a little bit different. I do have some nice kits from some good companies to go with this, and hopefully we'll get to look at those in the coming weeks. But there we are. That is the stable block from LCA done. I'm not sure if you can get these anymore at the moment, but it is worth having a look on their Facebook page and dropping them a message, and I will drop a link in the description below to that. But if you want to keep on with this and keep up to date with it, just give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification, and you'll be updated when the next part of this series gets up. Hopefully we'll be looking at painting this soon, but I think we need to get the diorama base done next so that we can start laying things out, getting an idea of where things are going to be going before we start thinking about painting things. So thanks for joining us again. We hope to see you again soon.